Hey guys, this is Red and Blue. We've talked about the fun part earlier. Go see the video about Ousmane Dembélé winning the Ballon d'Or, which I say is the top news of the day. But we also have to talk about the Marseille game. And sadly, like the defeat that we took in Marseille last night, 1-0 in the Vélodrome. Yeah, with some learnings, with some things to talk about. Obviously, like there's also like was all the controversy going into the game. Ultimately, I think it's really annoying to lose against Marseille, especially since it hadn't happened in so long. It's 14 years since we lost to them in the league. So it's a long time. We had taken a loss in the French Cup in Marseille with Christophe Galtier, so a few years ago. But even that, I think like at this point, it's like like a good 4-5 years ago now. So yeah, it's a bit sad. It is what it is. I guess like the silver lining of it is that it shows the degree of performance of not like taking a loss there for so long, and consistently dominating them, consistently showing up, and consistently like managing to get one over them. It also shows that in football, in the end, anything can happen, especially for us. When we're facing so much injuries, when like weather conditions don't go our way, when there's like other things on players' mind, and when physically we're not at our best. So we do need to keep putting the work in, keep making the efforts, keep challenging ourselves, and at the same time, ultimately, it also shows how far ahead we are of Marseille in absolute terms. And I know it's a bit silly to say that after a defeat, but ultimately, we're missing 80% of our front line. We've got players who are in a lot of questionable physical conditions. We have to go back and forth between Paris and Marseille twice in 2 days, don't train the day before. It's all a mess. And we're trying new stuff tactically, and ultimately they only managed to beat us 1-0. And honestly, I've rewatched the game, and I do think they do deserve the win ultimately. And I think if one of the two teams had to win, it was probably for them. But I don't think a draw would have been undeserved by any means. I do think we have not so many chances, because actually we have a lot of trouble in this game creating opportunities for ourselves. But we have situations where if one pass is played a little bit better, if one player's run is a bit more decisive, if those little things go our way, then you end up with the ball in the net, and the game is different. But it's always easy with what ifs after a defeat. Ultimately, the thing is, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but it doesn't really matter that much, because we're still top of the league. We're still ahead of Marseille in the league, and we still have 3 points on them after 5 days. And supposedly, given the predictions, given the way the mercato have been, given the noise in the league and so on, the game in Marseille should be the hardest one for PSG of the whole season to play. Maybe the game in Monaco will be difficult, the game in Lyon will be difficult, the game in Lille will be difficult. But yeah, that's it. And the Marseille game in this category. So we're at the very least, we're talking about one of the top 4 hardest game in the league. And honestly, even if we lose all of those 4 games, we'd still be champions. So yeah, it doesn't really matter that much in the end. But anyway, let's talk about it. Like I said, there's a few things to talk about as well. And I think that was interesting, and I think it also shows something. One of the big things that we saw happening ahead of the game, Luis Enrique played a back three. He played Marquinhos, Zabarni, and Pacho, with Hakimi on the left, Hakimi on the right, and Nuno Mendes on the left. And it was interesting because that structure kind of evolved in a lot of different ways. There were times when we were playing a back three. There were times when we were playing a back four. I think ultimately for me, like the way I was reading it is that a lot of times Hakimi was actually playing the right winger position and Marquinhos was playing the right back. And so it was actually pretty similar. The only, not the only difference, obviously, but like the main difference that I saw is that Nuno Mendes was doing the role that Hakimi usually does, which is like being that full-back defender that goes back and forth between attack and defense. And so that created a lot of difference. I know like he's been doing that a lot more since the middle of last year. There's been games where he has a lot more freedom to run up and down. But in this case, like I said, like to me, Hakimi was playing a right winger position. Marquinhos was really staying in defense. He didn't venture forward. And so, like Nuno Mendes was really the one. And sometimes he was really like trying to go deep on the left, sometimes cutting back infield, and trying to combine with Ruiz and Kvara. And I think like there's a lot of learning there because I think the execution was honestly like a lot less than ideal. So we'll come on to that. I think like in terms of the back three and like playing the three central defenders, it reinforced a few things. First, Zabarni played a good game, and I think like he's ramping up. He's showing that he's a good recruit. I was actually surprised that he played in the middle of that back three and not on the right, because I think like in terms of quality of passes and in terms of being able to have the experience and control the defense, Marquinhos might have been more relevant in this central position, but it's a game of detail and you can have it either way. It's the first time that Zabarni was playing with Pacho, and I don't think it was super noteworthy. I don't think it was like a match made in heaven straight away. I think they'll need some work and some game time together to really kind of play better and cover better for each other. And the fact is, it's not helped because I think Pacho had a rough, at least a rough first half, and he actually gets substituted in the second half when we drop back to our usual four defenders. And so I think there's some learnings. I think it's something that we'll have to see again, but I think ultimately it gave us a lot of control at the back for sure. And I think it's no coincidence that Marseille only gets one goal in the end. They did have a couple of other chances, but I think in general we were fairly in control defensively. And obviously, they were leading. They scored their goal on the 5th minute, so they were leading, and they didn't really have to go all out of their way to attack. But yeah, it felt like we were relatively in control. But it came at the price of lacking options up front, which I think was very, very clear. So we'll have to see. If it's something that we see again, I expect there will be tweaks in terms of organization, in terms of movements, in terms of how the different players combine together. But yeah, for the first half at bat, I saw it was relatively interesting, and it's a tactical system that a lot of people have been asking us to try for a while. So at least now we've done it once, and people have seen it. And I guess given Luis Enrique and his way of working, of trying a lot of different things in the first half of the season, I wouldn't be surprised to see this one again, at least a couple of times, so he can get it out of his system. So we'll see in the next few games, but yeah, I think it's relatively likely that we'll see it again. Fails on the wings. I think for me, that's kind of the downfall of this game. Like I said, I think Hakimi played very high up the pitch with Marquinhos behind him. I think on the left, Nuno Mendes was going back and forth with Kvara and Ruiz trying to combine. I'll go side by side. I think on the right side, that first half was actually pretty disastrous, if I'm honest. I think Hakimi was very isolated, not mobile at all. And because Marquinhos wasn't either, it was very easy to isolate them and very easy for the Marseille defense to cover for them. especially since Hakimi like still doesn't look at his peak fitness, and so he didn't really manage to create any one-on-one differences. And so in that context, it was really golden for Marseille. And I think you see in the second half where Pacho gets replaced by Lee. Lee Kangin comes in that winger space. Hakimi drops back down, but then Hakimi does his usual of running up and down, of combining, sometimes going infield, sometimes staying outside, and having a bit more opportunities to pass the ball around with Kangin Lee. And all of a sudden, there's a lot more danger happening on this side. And so I think the Hakimi Marquinhos combination. Maybe we wanted to make sure like that we would close down their Marseille's left flank, but honestly, it felt over the top, and it felt like it was shooting ourselves in the foot at the very best. So that will have to be played differently in a way. And I guess like that's not helped because Warren Zaire-Emery was the right midfielder, wasn't really having the best game either. So there was really no saving grace on this side. On the left side, it's a bit different because I think Kvara had a good game. I think Nuno Mendes had an okay game. Ruiz not so much, but like not catastrophic either. But what was really shocking to me is that the three of them were really like lacking coordination in a way that we hadn't seen in quite a while. And honestly, in the first half, it was very reminiscent of the Chelsea game sometime. The way like there'd be open space at the back of Nuno Mendes, which sometimes put Pacho in very hard situations as well. And so I think there was something like we weren't sharp as we should be. Vitinha wasn't dropping as fast in the space. Ruiz wasn't dropping as fast in the space. Pacho, I don't know if he was very comfortable covering the whole left side of defense on his own. He was always a bit central. And so that left spaces for us. And I think even offensively, the passing and the combinations and so on, like there was not a lot of cohesion between the players. And so ultimately we had more manpower on the left than on the right. But if I think about it, like Kvara and Nuno and Ruiz on that first half ultimately like didn't really manage to create any differences and create any space and create any opportunities for us. And I think that one was more like just lack of coordination, some technical failings, some stuff just like not clicking right. So I like I'm not entirely sure. Maybe like the players were just having an off day, which is possible. I was thinking, and like I don't want to like kind of like use this or have this as an excuse or anything, but I was wondering in terms of the players having to fly back and forth because like they flew to Paris for the game on Sunday, then the game got cancelled, so they flew back in the afternoon to Paris and spent the night in Paris and did the same thing yesterday. Playing the game and then coming back. And so one, like, obviously it's not a very long flight, but like there's a bit of travel time involved, which is obviously not the most comfortable of experiences, even if you're flying like a private jet or whatever it is they're flying. But two, like, it means on Sundays, they didn't get any trainings, they didn't get any time on the pitch, they didn't get any of that. And I think in the first half, in the beginning of the first half in particular, like it felt like some players had some cobwebs to shake in their legs a little bit. So maybe there was a role here, maybe I'm just making it up, but yeah, like I really wonder, and I think like it'd be interesting if ever like there was an in-depth interview of the staff in Paris or something, it'd be interesting to get their feeling on this. But yeah, like that's kind of what I felt. So yeah, that was like the big ones. I think then like in terms of individual performances, I'll start with the flops. Let's just check that out of the way. Chevalier, the goal is on him. It's just like a deflected cross that just like goes very high and comes back down, and it just like completely misses his aerial to go get the ball. And so like the Marseille player just puts a weak header, but there's no one left in goal. And so ultimately, like very hard to see this one as anything but a mistake on his part. I think if he wanted to go get the ball, he should have been a lot more decisive about it. And I think in this case, like the timing wasn't right for him, so he should have stayed on his line. And whatever happens at this point. He makes a mistake. He's a young goalkeeper. He's still learning. We knew like stuff like this was going to happen. It's costing us point today. So it's annoying, and it's against our rival. So it's really annoying. So hopefully, like, it's a mistake that's one and done. Obviously, like also it's funny, not funny, but like, he makes a mistake on an aerial, which was really like not a strong point of Donnarumma as well. So at least like on this one, we cannot go back and say like, yeah, Donnarumma would have like gotten that easy for sure, because like we've seen Donnarumma make plenty of mistakes over the year on aerials. So at least there's that. But yeah, and then like the rest of the game, I think ultimately like, I thought he was in an okay game. I think he's still like relatively precious with his passing and his distribution. But apart from this, he didn't really have that much to do either. He's got a nice save on Aubameyang at the very end. But apart from that, yeah, not that much to do for him. Other flops, I'm thinking of the players I haven't called out. Yeah, like the two others are like, for me, like the players I had called in the preview, so it's really frustrating. But yeah, Warren Zaire-Emery and Gonzalo Ramos, both of them, honestly, I'm a bit annoyed about both, because like Warren Zaire-Emery, honestly, he had a really good game against Lens, and he was like coming back. It felt like, since the Club World Cup, he was on an upward trajectory. We were starting to see the Warren Zaire-Emery of old, and this game, honestly, like, he's a TT, he's a PSG player, so he should know what it means. And he didn't feel like he was at 150%. So, fine, he had like some really like weak, some passes going nowhere, some challenges that like where he doesn't get the ball. Obviously, like he's got some physicality, which is always interesting, especially in a game like this, but he wasn't dominant either. And I'm sorry, it's Marseille opposite, it's not Barcelona or like Liverpool or whatever. So he should be dominant in that midfield battle. He should be like just based on his physical and on intensity and on like strong willingness. Like he should just like be able to take it on. He's got a couple of interesting challenges against Højbjerg. And like granted, Højbjerg is like really like probably like top 5 strongest midfielders in Ligue 1, but still like take that. Just take that. I'm not saying like do it 10 out of 10, but you should be taking it like 8 times out of 10. And right now, like it feels like it took him like generously like 4.5 times out of 10. So yeah, not enough. Ramos continues his streak of frustration of like when he's a substitute and coming on the pitch, he scores. When he's on the pitch from the start, he's nowhere to be seen. And I'm sorry, but that first half, where like we're missing presence up front for 2 reasons, because we're playing 3 at the back, so there's like technically like one offensive element that's gone missing, and 2, like Marquinhos is staying down, so like on that right flank, like we're missing a lot of presence, and Kvara tries to do a lot, but Ramos, like honestly, like he doesn't participate enough. Sometimes he's like like it's funny because like it's hard to blame him for it, but like sometimes he plays like a very traditional number 9, and so like he will stay offside for like a couple of minutes and then like drift back in the back of one defender as a way of like potentially like calling for the ball behind the defensive line or stuff like this, but our number 9 doesn't play doesn't play in the offside position. Or number 9 like drops back into midfield and help like create overload in midfield, and so like it's just like it's not the right fit to play like this. I think in the second half he's a little bit more active, but I'm sorry, like if you want to play like this, like fine, like it's your game and so on, but then you need to score. And if you don't score, like I'm sorry, but like there's nothing left to talk about positively in your game. And some of that's really like the sensations that I got tonight. It's really annoying as well, because you can see the talent, you can see in the way he moves, the way he calls for the balls, the way like he's got something, but like he's just like not exploiting it in the right way in this team to be able to shine, and that's really frustrating. And then in terms of tops, Vitinha, I thought had a really strong game. Pretty much equal to what we've seen from him. He's rolling the midfield. He's dictating the tempo of the game. He's dictating like the play. Goes left, goes right, carries the ball, passes forward, moves around, gets balls back with high presses. He had a couple of like really interesting shots at the end, and you can see like he was almost like the one on the pitch who was most annoyed at losing and like really trying at the end like anything to try to get the goal back. He has a shot from like far out where he tries to put one over Rudy like from a long distance, which would have been amazing if he had gone in. So yeah, like really strong performance for him. It's just like he's a little bit too alone in midfield today and with too few options ahead of him. And speaking of that, I think the other one who has a good game is Kvara. Kvara, I thought, was really interesting in his mobility. And he did on the left a little bit of what he did on the right against Atalanta, which is like alternate between taking the flank and really staying far wide, or like dropping back into midfield to like create the game and help like play as a more traditional number 10, help alleviate Vitinha of this creation job, and also open spaces on the left for Nuno Mendes and Fabian Ruiz to drop into. And I think technically he's very gifted. Obviously, I think in terms of his passing, there's some opportunities that he created which were really good. And I see also like had a couple of shots which were dangerous. I think I remember one in the first half in particular. So good game overall, and kind of a bit disappointing that he doesn't convert on one, and there's not like a game that a goal that comes through here. So anyway, this is kind of what I had for you guys on this OM PSG game. Perfect storm for Marseille, sadly not for us. So yeah, 1-0 loss. Yeah, annoying. At least now we get a few days off. Our next game is on Saturday at home against Auxerre, which should be like a relatively easy opponent. And then we'll be prepping for the game against Barcelona, which is going to come next week. So that's going to come pretty soon. And so, yeah, as always, like, please drop a like on this video. Let me know in the comment what you thought of the game, what you liked, what you didn't like, how frustrated you are. Let's, misery loves company, so let's do this together. And if you haven't yet, like, please subscribe to the channel. I do, like, PSG content pretty much every day in English. So subscribe to the channel, hit a like, hit the bell to get notified. And don't forget, ici c'est Paris!